All right, everyone knows what that bell means. We are starting our February 11th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We're glad that you're all here at the Wakanda Club, those of you here with us in person, those of you watching on our live stream, and those watching later on our YouTube channel. Thanks again for Invictus Media for filming our meeting today. I'm not wearing my mask while at the podium because I'm safely distanced from you, and I want you to hear me more clearly, even though you may not want to hear me clearly. We will be sanitizing the microphones between speakers. And with that, we have Mark Schnell today, who's going to give us a moment of inspiration, and then we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test.
Today's words of inspiration track on two themes, community development and love. As Rotarians, we have many interests, in particular the well-being of our community and the love for one another. The following quotes reflect on these themes, and you'll see that there are bookends on these quotes. First quote, "Love is that condition in which the happiness of another person is essential to your own." That's from Robert Heinlein. "There is immense power when a group of people with similar interests gets together to work toward the same goals." That's Idaway Keokegan. "One of the newest figures to emerge on the world stage in recent years is the social entrepreneur. This is usually someone who burns with desire to make a positive social impact on the world, but believes that the best way of doing it is saying, as the saying goes, not by giving poor people a fish and feeding them for a day, but by teaching them to fish in hopes of feeding them for a lifetime. I have come to know several social entrepreneurs in recent years, and most combine a business school brain with a social worker's heart. The triple convergence and the flattening of the world have been a godsend for them. Those who get it and are adapting to it have begun launching some very innovative projects." That's Thomas Friedman. "When individuals and communities do not govern self, they risk being ruled by external forces that care less about the well-being of the village." That's by T.F. Hodge. "Be transparent. Let's build a community that allows hard questions and honest conversations so we can stir up transformation in one another." That's Germany Kent. "It's only after you've stepped outside your comfort zone that you begin to change, grow, and transform." Roy Bennett. And the last quote, "Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." Please join me in the pledges of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Even though you're starting it, you can go ahead and wave at your fellow Rotarians. You don't have to wait on me. 29 really attractive people here today in attendance, and then 2 others that are marginally in that category. So we have a total of 31. I'm not going to tell you who's who, but Today, I have the honor of introducing our speaker today. Jay Byers is CEO of the Greater Des Moines Partnership. The partnership is the regional economic and community development organization serving central Iowa with 24 affiliate chambers of commerce and a network of more than 6,600 regional members. Byers is a certified chamber executive, that's CCE, graduate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute of Organization Management, IOM, graduate of the University of Oklahoma Economic Development Institute, the OUEDI, and graduate of Association of Chambers of Commerce Executives, ACCE, Ford Foundation Regional, one of those big words, and Sustainable Development Fellowship. Byers currently serves as incoming chair of ACCE and on the executive committee of the Iowa Chamber Alliance, the General Counsel of World Chambers Federation and U.S. Chamber of Commerce Committee of 100. He is a member of the Professional Developers of Iowa, Iowa Association of Business and Industry, International Economic Development Council, and Young Presidents Organization. Byers also serves on the board of Simpson College, Greater Des Moines Committee, Child Serve, and Catch Des Moines. Can you do a better job dealing with Greg Edwards, kind of keeping him under control there? Good luck with that. Yeah. Byers was named to the ACCE 2009 40 Under 40 Rising Stars of the Chamber World, Des Moines Business Records 40 Under 40, Class of 2006, and Business Records 40 Under 40 Alumni of the Year in 2012. He received the Greater Des Moines Convention and Visitors Bureau Community Champion Award in 2014 and the Simpson College Alumni Achievement Award in 2015. Prior to his current role, Byers served as the partnership's Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy. Before that, he worked at the district as the district director for Iowa Congressman Leonard Boswell and as an attorney at the Ice Miller Law Firm in Indianapolis, Indiana. Byers is a graduate of Simpson College and the University of Iowa College of Law. He resides in Des Moines with his wife Katie and two daughters Sophie and Charlotte. And it's no secret that Jay plays a mean guitar when he has time. And Jay, I'm sorry to tell you that with that long introduction, we're out of time today and don't have any time for you to speak, but we appreciate you coming. If we have time, which I like we think we will, for questions, I need a reminder to everyone, please step up to the microphone and state your name for the record for the deposition that may be held later. And state your question. And with that, I will turn it over to, turn it over to Jay.
I'm already not following directions here. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's really great actually to get out in person and see people. I've given a number of presentations and speeches over the last year, most of which have been over Zoom and haven't been out in person too much. So it's really great to see all of you today and a lot of friends who I haven't seen for a long time. And we're just talking about not traveling very much with my job. Traditionally, I travel a lot. I've not flown still since I think last February, so it's been a very interesting year, but in many ways a challenging year, but in many ways a very rewarding year, and I'm sure all of you have those stories as well. But I'm going to talk today just a little bit about the Greater Des Moines Partnership in general, sort of our COVID-19 response, what we're currently working on, and maybe a little glimpse into the future. So we'll go through this pretty quickly. I appreciate the invitation very much in the introduction, but one of the things I always sort of like to talk about is a lot of people assume I'm from Des Moines or grew up here. I'm actually a small town kid from Northwest Iowa, grew up in Cherokee County, a town called Meriden that has about maybe 180 people. Grandparents on both sides were farmers, parents were teachers. So I kind of have that sort of full Iowa background and really bring that to my job every day. And as we're talking about all these things that are happening, whether it's at the Capitol here or working with all of our rural partners, that is my background. That's how I grew up, and that is a big part of my worldview. This was already mentioned, the Greater Des Moines Partnership. We are the Regional Economic Development, Community Development Organization serving Central Iowa. Currently, I'm helping lead economic development in 10 counties, 24 affiliate chambers of commerce, more than 6,500 members. We're actually the 4th largest chamber of commerce in the country right now, which is something we're very proud of. But we're a combined chamber of commerce, combined economic development, and combined downtown organization, which is pretty rare for a size of community as big as we are. This is just a map of our territory. The stars are where we have those affiliate chambers of commerce with dual memberships, green counties where we're doing economic development with our partners. These are all the chamber affiliates where we have dual membership. So if you join any of these chambers, you become a member of the Greater Des Moines Partnership. In terms of our focus of work, we focus on economic development. That includes recruiting companies to move here, helping existing companies expand, and also building out that entrepreneurial ecosystem. We also do a lot within talent, so building up the pre-K through career pipeline, and working with all of our educational institutions and to make sure that we're churning out that workforce of tomorrow. That also includes the things that we can do to recruit talent to move here and to retain talent as well. Downtown development, working on a lot of different projects, but we also oversee a lot of the events, for example, the Des Moines Arts Festival, the Downtown Farmers Market, World Food and Music Festival, the Des Moines Book Festival. We do downtown planners, we do downtown banners, Clean, Safe, and Beautiful, so the folks that are cleaning the streets downtown or helping with extra security, that's all part of our umbrella. Business resources and community development, that's that traditional Chamber of Commerce work, providing assistance to our small businesses, whether that's technical assistance or programming, lots of things in between. Public policy, what I used to do, we're heavily engaged with lobbying at the federal level, state level, local level, cities, counties, schools. Communications and marketing, what we do to tell that story of DSM USA, not only here locally, but across the state, across the country, across the world, to put that on the map for our economic development and talent recruitment efforts. And then again, just the day-to-day stuff in terms of administration and investor relations. So like most of you, 5-year strategic plan, 1-year strategic plan. So focusing on our 5-year strategic plan has been focusing on talent, bolstering our global presence, innovation, acceleration, that marketing, telling our story, continuing to grow our population, preparing for that, and placemaking. Coming into COVID-19, a real position of strength for our region. I love these charts, but over the past decade, in terms of population growth, we have outperformed Omaha, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Milwaukee, St. Louis, Chicago. Same thing with employment growth and GDP. So again, all these different markets where traditionally perhaps we might not have thought we were competing, we've outperformed all of those markets over the course of the last decade in all 3 of these key metrics, significantly in many cases. COVID hits, right? So we all know, we all have our stories about that impact and our businesses, our organizations, our families. So same thing at the partnership. What can we do in terms of what can we do to help the community the most we could? We had our 1-year strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan, but really we put that all to the wayside and said, what can we do to focus on 3 things? What can we do to help keep businesses in business? What can we do to help keep people working? And what can we do to help keep our community safe? So really realigned all of our time, our resources, our staff to put together programming and initiatives focused on these 3 things. So there's a number of different things we did. We put together a rapid response hub for COVID-19, which we thought was, and still think is, one of the best resources across the country for that, with a one-stop shop, really upping our engagement with our stakeholders, those communication strategies, and especially with what we could do to communicate between our public policy leaders and our business leaders in terms of all that information that was flowing both ways. Lots of different programming opportunities, robust webinar offerings, and again, lots of storytelling in terms of all the things that people were doing within all three of those spaces of keeping our community safe and keeping businesses in business and keep people working. So there's a number of different things that we rolled out. We did a regional small business grant program. We pushed a support local businesses through the DSM Local Challenge. It was mentioned our relationship with Catch Des Moines, referral networks for assistance, really changing how we worked our economic development prospects and doing that without our folks who have been on the road, traditionally going to multiple trade shows, but how do we continue to keep that queue going? How could we connect those businesses who are still hiring people with those who are out of work, with all those folks that had layoffs, and having that connection through our career website. We launched a tutor connection that connected college kids with parents who are looking for tutors, and that has been very, very successful. We work very closely with Des Moines Public Schools to get a lot of the kids and parents connected with internet, and that didn't have that capacity. We know what a big challenge that has been, but that was a big lift in working with MediaCom and Des Moines Public Schools on that. And then pivots with all of our different events, right? What did the farmers market look like last year, and the World Food Festival, and those sort of things. So then sort of phase two was, what can we do to help lead the community in terms of getting everything moving forward? We put together a DSM Forward Task Force, which was made up of our board and some other Capital Crossroads regional leaders, to really put together a series of a strategy in terms of how can we help reopen the economy in a safe, smart, and collaborative way, working very closely with our state government and the governor's office, Polk County Public Health, our friends at Mercy, at Unity Point, and others, in terms of what can we do to do that in the best sort of way. And then we put together 16 industry-specific playbooks in terms of what are best practices in terms of how to open up your businesses. And so we put those together in rapid speed and deployed those. Then we put together, sort of moving forward into a growth stage, and this is the plan that we're still currently working on, or implementing, I should say. So focusing on these 6 initiatives. And I'll go into these in a little bit of detail. So broadband expansion, huge issue, top priority at the State House right now, as you're probably seeing. We have launched actually an 11-county study right now, an in-depth study in terms of a gap analysis, in terms of what is the current coverage of broadband and what do we need to do to move forward to make us a best-in-class region in terms of that connectivity. A lot of that data right now is very incomplete with what the federal government and so forth puts out. So we're moving forward with that right now. A very, very exciting project, and we hope to see very positive results from that. Business retention and expansion. Again, what can we do to focus on our current businesses that are here to make sure that they're successful moving forward, continue to make their pivots, and help them with their potential growth opportunities. Continue to focus on inclusion. This has never been more important. We know, in addition to COVID-19, with the tragic death of George Floyd and what that meant for our community, and really focusing on things like one economy, that we know as a region we can do a lot better. And so we've really upped our game with inclusion strategies through all of our work, and specifically a number of specific initiatives within that space. Talent and economic development marketing, again, even though we're not on the road, really changing our strategies in terms of what can we do to continue to attract people to move here, and what can we do to continue to attract economic development prospects. And again, doing that digitally and really recalibrating those messages based off of the current environment. Talent pipeline, this is a huge issue as well. How do we prepare our region for that future world of work? We know that there is already massive transformation that's been going on in our workforce. We've seen it in manufacturing for a number of years with automation, but also too with just a lot of the white collar jobs as well, with artificial intelligence, with automation. A lot of what's happened within other industries is definitely happening within insurance and financial services and other white collar jobs. And what can we do to continue to upskill our current workforce? Because there will be jobs that will change. We think overall that it will result in additional jobs, but the question is, will we be able to keep them here, and can we upskill our current workforce? And then placemaking. This is a huge part of economic development. This region, long before I've ever been doing this work, has been really understood this, right? Investing in things like arts and culture, in outdoor recreation and quality of life amenities is absolutely critical, more than ever, in terms of attracting talent and attracting businesses. And especially now with the trend of people being able to work from home, people can live, often wherever they want and to have global jobs. So we've got to do even a better job than we've done before in terms of investing in our future and placemaking, because people have a lot more choices now in terms of where they can live and work. James Chung, maybe some of you were part of the program when we brought James Chung to do a webinar for us. He's actually came in person a couple years ago. We brought him back this fall. But this is a note he had pinged me on LinkedIn, and some of the things that I'd been posting about some of the projects that we were working on. And one of the reasons and this is him, he's a data scientist from the East Coast, originally from the Midwest, but really, really sharp guy, and this was, he pinged me this. One of the reasons we found that Des Moines was one of the strongest performing mid-sized U.S. cities in the past decade was that it continued to move forward and invest in itself during the last recession. Looks like that pattern continued. So when he did his analysis, when he came before, looked at 2007, 2008, and really said, what was that? What were those big drivers in terms of all those charts that I showed earlier in terms of why we were outperforming these other areas? And it was because we were continuing to invest in ourselves. So I'm going to just talk about 5 projects very, very quickly that I'm super excited about, what I'd call transformational projects, things that people wouldn't necessarily expect that are happening in Greater Des Moines. But they're not only happening in DSM USA, but they're all happening now. They're all happening when you'd think it would be very challenging times, but this community is continuing to put the shoulder to the wheel and is pushing these forward. And again, these are just a sample of some projects. There's so many others that I could talk about today, but I'm just going to pick these 5. So Lordston Skate Park, $6 million project. This will be the largest skate park in the entire country. People say, well, why Des Moines? And we say, why not? Very, very exciting project. This is scheduled to open, I believe, in May. Central Iowa Water Trails project. I call this one the most transformational quality of life project of our generation. 150 miles of water trails, 86 projects, the 3 signature downtown projects of dam mitigation. It's about a $120 million project. Lots of progress has happened on this. There's been city approval for a number of the downtown projects. The Scott Street project is moving forward full steam ahead. There's also been really nice projects across the region in Johnston, West Des Moines, Van Meter, and other places. But again, very, very transformational project. You'll see surfing in downtown, you'll see whitewater rafting in downtown, and just an incredible project. USL Pro Soccer Stadium. We spent a lot of time working on this one. There's a ton of movement that's happened in the last 2 weeks on this, and you maybe have seen the development plans that were rolled out publicly last week from the Kraus Group. But again, a soccer stadium on the Dyko site that has been a Superfund site since 1983. 1983, I was in, 7th grade. So this is coming into downtown. I think a lot of us get used to it. I'm going to see it again when I go back to my office. It's an eyesore. It's environmental contamination. But we have a solution now with bringing Pro Iowa USL team here, an incredible project. And there's an application that's being put in for a Reinvestment Act at the state, but the EPA just approved the settlement this week as well for the Dyko site. So just an incredible project. Des Moines International Airport, again, just up the street, working with our friends at the airport in terms of building a new terminal. This one is a few more years out, but a lot of the groundwork continues to move forward. There will be additional federal stimulus money that will go into parts of this project, including things like parking ramps and runways. But again, this is something that is very, very much needed. Airport is our gateway to the world, and while it's a very easy airport right now to utilize, a lot of those gates are they don't fit very well with the current aircraft. It's sort of a lipstick on a pig. It looks okay. They make it work okay, but this is sorely needed, and this project is very, very exciting, and we're going to do everything we can to help make that one happen as well. And then this is one you might not have heard too much about. I love this project too, but the Des Moines Industrial Transload Facility, which is located not too far from Kemen, just sort of south and east of downtown. But there's actually 4 railroads that converge in the same spot right now, 3 of which are Class A railroads. But right now, a lot of the traffic, or a lot of the freight work that happens now between truck to train and train to truck, a lot of that has to happen in places like Omaha, places like Kansas City and Chicago. So in terms of our strategies for logistics, this is really going to put us in a really exciting spot moving forward. Just a really great project that's going to be transformational for us in terms of economic development on the logistics front. So then the question is, how is Greater Des Moines doing sort of post-COVID? I'm going to plow through these here pretty quick. But you've probably seen all these great rankings that we've had over the different years, and but so everything I'm going to show you right now is all things that have come out since COVID-19. So, Site Selection Magazine for 2020, we were the number 5 metro in terms of economic development projects last year. The unemployment rate, which you've probably all been tracking as well too, peaked at 12% back in April. Now it's down to 3.4%, and that's about half of the national average is, I should say, about twice of what our regional unemployment rate is. Record-setting year for commercial building permits in multiple cities in our region, and a record-setting year this last year for real estate sales for home real estate. Chmura Analytics and Economics found that our region's industry mix is more recession-proof than the national average, just because we have a very diverse set of industry clusters, and also that our employers were much more nimble in our ability to adapt to remote working environments. And I think that a number of you represent companies and organizations that were very successful in doing that. Again, the real estate journals still bullish on our market. Moody's Analytics, again, a great economics development source, third party. DSM is keeping its head above water, better than other metros, predicted we'll recover faster. Again, Moody's Analytics went on to say we'll outperform other markets based on our ability to attract new businesses and households. U.S. News and World Report, number 5 best place to live in the U.S. National Association of Realtors, top 10 housing market for millennials during the pandemic. Number 8 best city to live in after the pandemic. Smart Asset, number 4 best place to raise kids. Number 2 safest place to live. Forbes, number 11 most affordable affordable city to buy a house. Ascent, number 1 best place to live in the Midwest for high salaries and low cost of living. That one just came out this week, by the way. So again, lots of great rankings. These are all, again, post COVID-19. We know that, but all that being said, that we know there's still a lot of pockets of pain out there. We know that there's still a lot of people struggling. We know the airport and others and hotels and restaurants still are in recovery mode, but the passenger numbers have been improving at the airport. Regional occupancy rates are rebounding. And just a whole wide range of other projects that have been happening, whether it's infrastructure projects, interstate projects, quality of life projects, commercial projects, housing projects. It was actually a very strong year for economic development. Again, this is just sort of that summary of all those rankings. I love this slide. People ask, what has been driving the success in this region for so long? And it's really sort of 4 things. It's regionalism. I think if you look at, City Des Moines, which has 215,000 people approximately, the MSA now, which is about 700,000. But this region does, I think, a very good job of working together, Des Moines, suburbs, the rural areas, in terms of putting together strategies for not only economic development, but for working together on so many different things. If we're not able to get along, that we'll get crushed in terms of our competition that we're going up against nationally and internationally, because most of the time we're going up against cities and regions that are way bigger than us. And we have to be able to get along and work together well, and I think this region does a good job of that. Public-private partnerships, PPPs, some regions do much better than others. I think we've done a good job for a long, long time, the public and private and nonprofit sector, figuring out how to get along and move forward together instead of fighting with each other, which happens in a lot of other cities. And then leadership. Leadership drives everything. This community has very strong private sector leaders. This room is full of them, and local elected officials. Again, leadership drives everything. And then regional visioning. I think if you look back, again, long before me, before I've been working on this, but this community has every 5 or 6 years put together very aggressive regional vision plans and then implemented them. And so a lot of these projects that I've talked about have been part of those vision plans. So really moving forward, this is a big year for our region because Capital Crossroads, which is our current 5-year vision plan, actually we're in 2.0 right now. All of our regional partners will be coming together to reload for the next 5-year vision plan. So we're going to need all these great ideas from all of you. Where are we going to go? What do we want that future to look like? When I talk about COVID-19, people talk about the Great Reset, and people ask, what's the new normal look like? But for the partnership, we like to talk about what can we do, not what's the new normal, but what can we do to create that better normal? What can we do to really look at some of the things, perhaps with the Great Reset, that maybe we haven't done quite as well? How can we be, how can we make it a more sustainable normal? How can we make it a more civil normal? How can we make it a more inclusive normal? How can we make it a more resilient normal? And that's really what Capital Crossroads 3.0, or whatever it's going to be called, is going to be about. What can we do to really propel our region into the future? So looking forward to working with all of you on that, getting all the ideas, and very exciting. We're very, very excited for our future. So happy to answer any questions, cover a lot pretty quickly.
Jay, I'm going to start off. I'm looking at my phone because we have some members that have emailed. By the way, I'm Kitty, and I'm not a cat.
Duly noted.
This comes in from Kent Sovereign, who is joining us by live stream, and he said, it's wonderful to see you here today. This is more of a congratulatory message. So congratulations to Jay for all the great work of team partnership over the years, and best wishes for many more years of great success and fulfillment as we all work to create great places for all ages. Thank you.
Well, Kent, if you're out there, he knows he's one of my mentors. And when I first went to the partnership as Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, it was after he left. So I took his spot. So he's been a great friend and mentor to me.
It's great to have you be here today. I have a two-part question, and you touched on it briefly here, the first part, and that is looking at infrastructure focuses for the future. Where do you see us as a region, and the partnership in particular, leading us through, and what are those key infrastructure things? And the second part is, one of the transformational things that I think we've seen over the last decades has been where we have great local companies that have been built by local entrepreneurs and families, and then they get bought out by outside parties. My question in the second half is, what are we doing to support those companies and have them be the buyers of others rather than to have our locals be bought by outside parties?
Yeah, great question. Start with infrastructure. Covered some of those priorities. We work very, very closely with our public partners on a lot of the infrastructure questions. So the Des Moines area MPO, who is represented by all the the cities here in the region. And so in terms of, when we go to Washington, D.C. and talk with our legislators, both at the federal and state level, a lot of those priorities, we sort of rely on them to sort of prioritize those. But there's been some really, just in terms of surface transportation projects, big projects that happened this year, right? The flyover by, Grimes, Urbandale, that one's been on the books for a long time. That's been one of our, priorities for many, many years. Major intersection, construction in Ankeny at First Street this year too. Some really big projects. So again, sort of from the surface transportation side, really sort of working closely with MPO and others in those. I mentioned the airport, huge priority for us in terms of infrastructure. The transload facility is also infrastructure based as well too. So those are some of the bigger ones, but I think it's also how do you look at infrastructure in a broader sort of way, right? So that broadband definitely needs to be looked at in terms of building out that infrastructure. And we have a lot of work to do yet on that too, right? There's some areas that have really excellent coverage. There's some areas of our region that have very poor coverage, and sort of everywhere in between. And it's not always through the traditional lines, right? It's not just necessarily, some of the rural areas have really good coverage, and some of the urban areas don't. So it doesn't necessarily go along the lines that some people think. So those would be some of the priorities that we'd be focusing on. In terms of local companies being bought by out-of-state companies, or a mutual company becoming going public, those sort of things. We think about those strategies all the time, right? And so we work very, very hard to develop strong relationships with the current leaders in all of our companies, right? Whether they're on our board, or whether we're just developing those relationships through our investor relations strategies, and through our outreach, through our business retention and expansion program. But then also when we travel on the road, when we're able to do that or connect with them via Zoom, that we also develop relationships with their headquarters as well too. So if they're they report to New York or wherever, that we're always continuing to have those conversations to make sure that we're on their map to say, hey, if you have expansion opportunities, those sort of things, really consider us here. If you're having any problems here, what can we do to help make you successful? And then part of that too, Mark, is there's always sort of business cycles, right? So if we would have been standing here 50 years ago, and what were the biggest companies here, most of those names maybe don't even exist anymore, right? So you always have to be focusing on your entrepreneurial ecosystem, growing your existing businesses, starting new businesses, recruiting new businesses, and who's going to be the next principal, or who's going to be the next Nationwide, or who's going to be the next Wells Fargo, or you name the company. Comment or whatever. And so again, it's really maintaining those relationships with the existing leaders, making them feel welcome here, helping them be successful here, showing them that there's opportunities to grow here, and then continuing to grow new businesses. You got to do both.
Hi, Denise Essman. I have two questions. One is, what's the status of passenger rail? And the second question is Crossroads. Used to hear a lot about it and the different components of it. You mentioned that you want to get input from us and good ideas. How are you planning to do that, and on what specific topics?
Yeah, passenger rail is interesting. That project has been, so we've been pretty heavily engaged with that over the years in terms of what would it take to get passenger rail through central Iowa with that route that goes on the Iowa Interstate Railroad. So it potentially have stops, going through Chicago, Quad Cities, Iowa City, Des Moines, Omaha. So there were some very in-depth studies by the Iowa Department of Transportation. There was a large grant that the state of Iowa received a number of years ago that would help move that project forward. Nowhere near enough to complete the project, but a substantial amount of funding for that. And it's sort of been, I would say, put on hold and pretty dormant for a while. And actually, it's interesting because it's kind of raised its head again. Started to hear, got a couple notes even with some of the folks who we were partnering with that there might be an opportunity with the current administration that might make that a priority, right? I mean, you ask, you see with President Biden, he rode Amtrak every day, he likes rail. And so I don't know exactly what that means, right, in terms of what Congress is going to do or not going to do, but we still think it'd be a good thing. We haven't been focusing a ton of time on it in the last 4 years because it's been, we didn't think there was sort of the political will to be able to, continue to move it forward. So we'll see what happens. It's actually a very timely question. Other question was capital cross. Yeah, so it's a great question yet because the sort of grass top leaders of Capital Crossroads have, been not only the partnership, but the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, United Way, Catch Des Moines, Bravo, Greater Des Moines, MPO, others, right? So there's, we have not, that group has not come together yet to say how we want to do 3.0. It's very much in the research phase in terms of what should that look like, who should the consultants be, what should that process look like. So I can't answer that right now, but I am pretty confident that by the end of the year, mid-year, that there will be a process in place and that there will be a significant amount of public outreach and input, and would, maybe if there's an opening slot for you here to have someone from that group come and kind of talk about that process and how that input process will work. In the past, it's been everything from surveys to town hall meetings to one-on-one interviews, those sort of things. So that is yet to be determined. But anytime anybody has any good ideas on anything, just shoot me an email anytime. So we're always looking for good ideas.
I have an email from Judy McCoy Davis. Says,
Awesome.
Jay, you talked about the importance of having a welcoming community to attract the workers we need. So are you and the other business leaders concerned about some of the proposals at the Capitol that aren't welcoming to the LGBTQ community and their friends?
Yes. No, it's a fair question, right? It's I think with what you saw in the paper today, I don't think that legislation is going to go anywhere personally. Who knows? But I mean, if you look at what's happened on that issue in the past, if you talk to my friends and colleagues in places like Indianapolis and North Carolina, when they lost lots of business and they lost the ability to host NCAA tournaments and these sort of things, I mean, it's a business issue, right? So again, issues like that in terms of, not only your ability to attract and retain talent, but to attract and retain these types of events, it's what the market is driving, and you got to listen to that.
Hi, Jay, Skeet Wooten. I have three questions. Question number one, what's the biggest impediment that you run into in attracting new business that comes to Des Moines? Number two, you're not a political organization, but you are a political organization. So what's the partnership's stance on making sure that Iowa retains its first in the nation status? And lastly, and probably most importantly, who are the three best guitar players besides you?
Oh, wow. Let's see if I can remember all these questions here. So, biggest challenges we have, I think, well, one, weather, right? Right. Let's just be honest, right? I mean, in terms of talent and so forth too, I think people, those of us who live here, I always say, having four distinct seasons is I like that, right? And you can't have a beautiful spring and fall without a winter. And so we've really been focusing on what can we do to really encourage folks to embrace winter. But overall, I think that sort of perception is an issue. Again, something we can't really change, right? But that is exactly why these investments in placemaking. And the other thing is too, we don't have mountains, we don't have oceans, but that's why we're making these big strategic investments in things like water trails and soccer stadiums and skate parks and those sort of things, because we can still be very, very competitive on that. I think the other is just and this one's changing too, but that sort of, I mentioned the airport, right? Just our connectivity. We've got, I don't know exactly what the number is today, but usually 20-some direct flights. But a lot of, if you want to go to a lot of places, you got to do multiple flights, and so I think that has always been sort of a challenge for us. But again, I think it's kind of yet to be determined in terms of what that means in terms of future business travel and those expectations. But I think we're doing what we can, with this investment in a new terminal down the road to make ourselves more competitive. And there were some nice announcements this week too with Allegiant Air, which you might have seen with their hub here, which is a big deal, which had been sort of delayed, but just announced 3 new direct flights to new markets for us that we hadn't had before, and that's a big deal. So those are probably two that we hear about the most, and then probably third is just sort of perception, if you've not heard of Des Moines or Iowa, those sort of things, and if they've never been here, what that perception is. And that's why we spend so much time and effort on PR and marketing and sharing with the world all these stories. Let's see here. What was the second question? Third one was keeping the caucus. Yeah, no, we are not a political organization. We are a C6, 501c6, and we don't have a PAC. We don't endorse candidates. Our platform is, is it good for economic development in Greater Des Moines? That's basically what our platform is. But that being said, we are huge proponents of keeping the caucuses. We were heavily engaged with the caucus consortium over the years, so with the working with both parties, as David knows, with the Republicans and Democrats in terms of what we can do to make this a place that's welcoming for the national media. With the Iowa Caucus Center up at the Iowa Event Center last year, we helped put all that together. Our team was very active with the media component, along with Catch Des Moines and a number of other partners. So we've reached out to them, both parties, multiple times, and continue to do so and say, what can we do to be helpful? And I think that inertia has always sort of been on our side. I think if we were sitting here a year ago and said, "Oh, we're going to be able to keep the caucus," we might have questioned that. I think we got a chance to keep both of them, actually. And I think on the Republican side, we've got a better chance. I think that one's looking pretty good, at least from what I'm hearing. And I still think we have a chance on the Democratic side, too. And one of the things that's been great is the bipartisanship of the chairs. Every cycle is they go arm in arm and say, we want to keep this. And so I think we still have a shot. I think there definitely needs to be a number of reforms that need to be made. And I think we need to be aggressive with that messaging. But I think there's actually been a number of stories in the last couple of weeks that have really sort of did a deep dive into what happened. And I think there was a fair amount of blame at the DNC level in terms of what happened here. And so I think that they need to sort of shoulder some of that as well, too. But I think we got a shot. Guitars. Yeah, I'm going to give you sort of some weird answers on this because I'm really not that great of a guitar player. So I really am a big fan of Paul Simon, and not because he's like wailing on guitar solos, but I like his style. I've always really liked Pete Townsend, and he's not really known for his solos, but he just sort of pounds on it, and that's kind of how I play too. So I appreciate those who sort of. He's one of those ones who sort of maybe plays above his weight class, but. As a kid, I always loved Eddie Van Halen too. That was really sad to see him. I actually met him a long, long time ago in Ames, kind of a random thing, but I always admired him as a kid. I always thought he was the greatest. So.
I'll just say I'm sorry to those of you who emailed and texted me. We ran out of time, but Jay, you're obviously very popular and had lots of additional questions, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jay, for being with us here today and sharing your interesting and informative presentation. And thanks for all you do for the Greater Des Moines community. Thank you very much. Today we're donating the book, How to Make Decisions as a Group, to the Downtown School Library in your honor. And I understand the next book coming out in that series is How to Make Decisions as a Group Without Wasting Time. But I'll be waiting on that one. Thank you all for being here with us today, whether in person, live streaming, or later on YouTube. Our upcoming speakers. Next week, we have our own Matt Unger, which rhymes with hunger, which is, I'm sure, a topic he's going to be talking about. Matt's with DMARC. February 25th, Colonel Chad Stone from the Iowa National Guard, so make sure you dress in your Class A dress uniforms. March 4th, Todd Sommerfeld, president of Craig Tool. That'll be an interesting presentation, I'm sure. Again, thank you all for being here today with us, being part of your Rotary Club of Des Moines, and ask you that you stay safe and warm when you head out, and we are adjourned.